come from pain. Pain will keep knocking on your door your whole life, and you got to learn how to handle it.
Where do you think you learned that unconditional love?
I try to look at them in an empathetic way and go, wow, why are they like that?
Wow. Life is all about problems and how to solve those problems. Healthy attunement would be me going over there. Oh, what happened, Tim?
Yeah.
Is your knee okay?
20s and 30s, I was big time in the recovery zone. Oh yeah, let me tell you that story because I can kick into it.
Sure. Welcome back to the Ryan Zofay experience. I'll tell you, I am really excited for this special guest today, my man, Tim Storey.
Good to see you. I like the name of the show. So when you think of experience, what are we going to experience today?
Well, it's interesting, and why I say the Ryan Zofay experience is because in life, most people talk about concepts. And I have learned that experience is actually where you find the depth and the true understanding of what life is really about. So like, for example, the concept of love, right? Like it makes sense. Like, oh, I understand the concept of love.
Yeah.
But when you experience love, it's a much different.
I like that.
Yeah. And a lot of what I do when I'm speaking on stage is giving people experiences.
Yeah. I like that. And I think that's so true. That we become voyeurs, like even people watching certain things on television or TikTok or social media, they're voyeurs, but they're not really experiencing.
Yeah, for sure. And so, a lot of the trainings and the work that I do is identifying like unconscious programs and patterns, and those memories are established based on experiences. See, the quality of your life is based on the quality of the experiences that you've had. And people assign meaning to them. And so the more I can feel good about what it is that I'm doing, the more I can give those types of experiences to others so they can shift their perspective. I believe I'm doing God's work. I believe I'm making an impact.
I like that.
And you do that, Tim, when you speak. You give people experiences. And so if you wouldn't mind telling us, like, what drove you to want to be famous, influencer, and having the level of impact that you do in the world?
So it's an interesting thing that I think you got to look at the era that I'm from. So Les Brown is older than me. He's before me. John Maxwell before me. Tony Robbins just a few years older than me. But when I started, I never thought about fame or becoming well known. I thought about being good at what I did. So, I went to seminary, and so I wanted to be a humanitarian, and that's what I am still. But I created a message on turning your setbacks to comebacks.
Yeah.
And I dove deep into that thing. And, everybody has had a setback in your life.
Sure.
And if you're not going through one now, you probably will later, or someone in your family or your friends are. So when I was creating this message that I think that God downloaded to me, I never knew that it would take me to 82 countries of the world. So those things I never thought about. And then becoming a person that became known by a lot of people, that was not something I looked for, but it's something that I'm thankful for because I can help more people.
Yeah, and I've 100% have had that experience with you. It's interesting. When I think about my journey to really breaking out and getting on these big stages and becoming an influencer, it really started with you. You were a pivotal point in my journey. I don't know if you knew this or not. A young lady that Tim and I both know puts on events, and she was super excited to have you. She's like, oh my God, I'm having Tim Storey. And up until this point, you were the biggest name she's ever had on her stage. And she's like, and I want you to come meet him. And I was like, all right, great. And then I'm backstage, first time I meet you. And you were like, what's up, kid? I was like, what's up, man? And you were like, what are you going to speak about? And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, I didn't know I was speaking. And Maritza's like, yeah, I want you to speak. I was like, okay. Like my insides were going crazy. And I was like, okay. And then she's like, and I want you to go after Tim. I'm like, okay. I was like, I'm screwed. I'm screwed. So that was my first experience with you.
Yeah, and the thing that I liked is the presence that you carry. Is that many times when somebody dies and gets resurrected, the person that died was the discount version of themselves.
Wow, I love that.
And when you were resurrected and Jesus has done these new things in your life, I saw the life in you.
Wow.
Because I didn't even know your story. I just saw life.
Right.
Because you can see life in a person. So I saw that. And then what happened is that some people were pulling me away, and there was an upstairs. So these people pulled me away to chat with me. And you started speaking. I said, wait, I got to hear this guy. And man, when you were speaking, it was anointed. Mm-hmm. So there's a difference between like human effort and if we take classes to become a good speaker.
Right.
Okay? And I think that one should. I think one should work with a coach and get better. But it was beyond that. You were anointed. God was flowing through you. So I told these two guys I was talking to, I go, hey, I'll talk to you after. I got to go watch. So I made them let me sit in the front row.
I remember watching it.
And I was not just sitting there. I was leaning in going, whoa, okay, this is not normal. And so I knew that you had it. And then it's awesome to see now that you spoke just the other day to about 3,400 people.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And you know what's interesting is when you start to become a speaker and you get out there and you start rubbing shoulders with some of the best in the world, you tend to not want to go behind like the best because they leave such an experience and such an impression, then you have to meet that bar. And so when she told me I was going to go after you, I was like, oh my God, I'm screwed. And I remember sitting in the back and you started talking about, you know, the presence of God and what God has done for you in your life and being on this mission to truly transform and impact other people's lives. I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm here because God wants me here. I'm going after Tim because God wants me to go after Tim. Like it started to really make sense to me. I was like, holy crap. And then I felt like God just like channeled through me and I was like, I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I'm going to go all in on this.
I like that way of thinking. I think that even though I've been doing this so much longer than most people, so I've been doing it over 40 years. That's a long time. And when I started at 20, I was trained really well. Like I had like some of the best people training me. And then, as you know, I did a Hollywood Bible study for 25 years. So in my mid-20s, man, I would speak, and then like famous actors would critique me.
Right.
We would hang out after or be at a restaurant, and they go, hey, you should consider doing this or change your voice here. Or Robert Downey Jr. said to me one time, he goes, Tim, you're best when you're tired. And he said, I notice that when you are just geeked up, your energy is too high. And he says, so that doesn't mean you have to come in here exhausted to be good. He says, but bring your energy back. Man, that was some brilliance.
Sure.
So I was really trained by amazing people. But what I see in you is that you're part of a puzzle. You're a piece of the puzzle. I'm a piece of the puzzle. An Ed Milet is a Grant Cardone, an Eric Thomas, a Tony Robbins. We're all just a piece of the puzzle.
Sure.
But you're just as valuable as Tony Robbins or Grant Cardone or Eric Thomas or Tim Storey, because what you're bringing to the puzzle is something that I can't bring. So to be honest, I watched you and thought, man, this guy is saying some amazing stuff that I don't even know about.
Wow.
Because you've been trained in ways that I've never been trained.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting, and a lot of the trainings have come from just my own pursuit to heal my own traumas and my own hardships and setbacks, as you will. And it's interesting because they say knowledge is the precursor to the experience. So along my journey, I was doing a lot of the things that people may be able to identify as like, oh, that's a skill, that's a learned behavior.
Yes.
I didn't know this, but when I met with Myron, he taught me the essence and what essence really means, the character, the nature, the intention of God. And so when you talk about, the character of God is holy.
Yeah.
Holy means one. There's only one of me.
That's powerful.
And so that was so important for me because for so long I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. I was trying to fit in. I was trying to, make a name for myself or prove myself. And once Myron like anchored that, was like, to what you just said, like, Ryan, you're very unique. Like, nobody has your story.
Right.
Like, lean more into that, and you will then take off.
Yeah. So I think if I was coaching you, and this will be good for everybody watching, is that I think that, in the next 10 years, it's going to be like 5 stories that come out of you. So one of the stories you tell is about your father. You tell a story about your sister. You talk about having to go through what I call the recovery zone in recovery.
Sure.
And then you give us ways to apply the things you've learned. But so I think that that's one side. But there's another side to you that I think is pretty awesome, where you're very compassionate. And the world is lacking compassion because we're all on such a fast track that we're missing the person that is not on the fast track.
Right.
And it's almost like being at an airport and you're on the people mover that's moving very quickly, but you're not noticing the lady who's stumbling and walking, and her legs are not going right, and she's behind. So I think part of your message, if it was like one of the 5 in the next 10 years, is going to be like on compassion. Because one thing that is drawing people to you is that you have compassion. And that is the thing that drew people to Jesus Christ.
Wow.
He says they will know that you are the disciples because of your love.
Wow.
That's powerful though, right?
Very powerful. Very powerful.
And that's what I felt in that room. So you spoke, as we said, there's about 3,300 people there, but there's a lot of really great speakers that we were watching you together.
Sure.
It's not easy to fill a space like that with warmth. Plus, the floors are not carpet; they're like concrete, right?
Yeah.
So other speakers, it felt like they were speaking in a garage,
Right.
because they're not bringing warmth.
Wow.
And so when you were speaking, because of the gift you have and the compassion, it heated up the room.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt that. It's interesting. What I love about you, Tim, is you always like identify like people's strengths. Like you always bring out and highlight the best in what people have.
Yeah.
I think that's a God-given gift that you have, because what we focus on, we experience. What we focus on, we get more of. And I think that's been my experience with you is every time I'm in proximity of you or I'm around you and I see you working with other people, including myself, you always pull pieces out of people that they may know that's there, they haven't visited it in a while, or they may not even know it's there, and it really inspires people to be better,
Yeah,
to be
thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
But I think that's the coach in me, where biblically, if you were to take Tim Storey's gift, I think that God gave me the gift of encouragement. There's actually that is spoken about in the Bible. And if I look at the coaching side, I see myself like a Phil Jackson. So Phil Jackson, when he was with the Chicago Bulls, in his book, he talked about, imagine the personalities I had. I had Michael Jordan, who is one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player of all time. But then he had people like Dennis Rodman. And then he had Scottie Pippen, who is really kind of in a rivalry. We're finding this out more and more as time goes on with Michael Jordan. They kind of had a love-hate relationship. But let's just take to Coach Jordan and to Coach Rodman, 2 different players.
Right.
So he had to really figure out their personalities, how they flowed. And then he did something that I call, he taught them to soar with their strengths. So that's how I approach people. I never look for the weaknesses in somebody.
Sure.
I look for the strengths and try to get them to soar with their strengths while they're working on their weaknesses at the same time.
And that's such a genius move, because strengths and weaknesses are available.
Yeah.
And you pull forward people's strengths, And the more that you do that, the less of the weaknesses will appear.
Yeah.
And so I think that's genius. And you talked about compassion, and that's a lot of what I bring forward. Going through the trauma and the pain and the abuse that I went through, the only solution to solving those problems was love and compassion, and really understanding like that was preparing me to be the change that the world needs to see. That was preparing me to be a blessing, to be able to impact at the level that I impact. And there was a long time when I did not believe that. I did not understand that. I was in such pain and agony. And so a lot of what I believe happens to people like you and I is we go through our own level of transformation, and then we essentially just teach the level of transformation that we've learned and healed on ourselves.
Yeah, I like that. So I think that for you and me, we have to figure out what is our role in people's recovery. As Christian men, we believe that Jesus Christ came to do Isaiah 61, and that was to take people's ashes, which denotes something that has died, and then he says he'll exchange it for beauty. It never says he'll put beauty on the ashes. He says he'll take the ashes and exchange it for beauty. So that's what we do.
Wow.
We're taking people into a more beautiful life.
Yeah.
So I think for you, one thing I'm loving is that with the fact that you have places where people can recover mentally, spiritually. It's not just addiction. It's just recover from challenges in life.
Yeah.
You have that, but you also have this thing where you want to take people all the way into their beauty. And I think that's something that people need to see about you, that you're not trying to just take them to just one specific destination. You're trying to teach them to learn a lifestyle that will give them a beautiful life.
It's so true. I mean, really maximizing one's potential, and having so many limitations on myself and taught so many limitations. Like as I started breaking through those barriers personally, I was like, oh my God, like I gotta show this to people. I gotta teach this to people. And it started with just like the friends around me. And I remembered as I started going down this healing journey, my friends would be like, dude, every time I'm around you, you just add so much value. I just feel so inspired. I want to be better. And then that just kind of kept building and kept building. And literally, as I said to you, that night with Melitza was like really when it was like the reaffirming. It was like God saying like, okay, you don't need no more confirmation. Like this is your confirmation.
Yes.
Like one of the best in the world just spoke. You went after him for a reason, to show yourself that you can do this. And then he loved on you, and you did. You came over, you hugged on me, and it's actually and you know this. You're a part of my my sizzle reel. So
it says a lot. And shout out to Melitza for doing Epic Talks, because she puts her heart, her soul, her finances into that, and she creates a platform that a lot of us have met. But if I could say this also about your journey and what you're doing, is that there's a price to pay. And so maybe you could tell us why you're willing to pay the price, because you could just be a businessman, because you're good in business, and you could just do what you're doing as far as helping people and their families in the way that you're doing it through recovery centers, etc. But why are you willing to pay this new price? Because there's a price. There's a price to pay for this.
It's so real. And so having an addiction and an illness, selfishness, self-centeredness is at the core of that addiction.
Yeah.
So for a very long time, I was very selfish, and I felt very entitled, and I was very angry and resentful at my parents because of what I was brought into. And until I started doing the work and starting to understand like these were all gifts, I literally felt entitled. I felt like everything was owed to me. And I started a path in 2012 where I found this new high, or this new addiction, which was money. I wanted to be rich. I thought being rich means I'm somebody in the world. Being rich means that I have power and nobody can take anything from me. I'm in control. Those were the ideas that I had.
Yes.
So from 2007 to 2012, that was my mission. 2012 comes. I had the riches. I got sued by the FTC. My fiance left me. I was on the front of the newspaper. My father called me the next morning and literally disowned me. He said, "You're not my son.
Yeah,
My
it's a
son
lot.
wouldn't do this." And it crushed me, Tim. It crushed me. And I took a year off and I really dove in and started to identify like what was going on for me. And that's when I started doing the inner child work and the experiential therapy and started to heal myself. And what I found in that healing journey, that this life has nothing to do with me. As crazy as that may sound, it's all about what you can do to make a difference in the world, the impact that you can give. And as I've learned more about Jesus, that's the way he lived his life.
Yes.
And then God started putting influential people on my path to kind of reaffirm that. You know, first was David Traub, then it was Tony Robbins, then it was you. And the story just continued. And so now I've been doing this for about 12 years of like putting other people first and solving other people's problems and really being the change that they need to see. Life has come 100 times greater than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, I see that. And I see a lot more peace in you that even when I first met you. So I see it as the same way you see it, that we've been called to live our life and then we give our life. Because if you don't live, you can't give.
Sure.
You can't give what you don't have.
That's so true.
Okay? So Jesus came to give you life and life more abundantly. So as you know, the word life is an interesting word. It's Zoe, which means an animated life. If you notice, most people, they lack animation. That's one reason people want to have children, because they want the animation in a dead house.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people that are unhappily married want to have children, and because I think they don't even realize they're doing it for this reason, but they're looking for animation in a dead marriage.
Sure.
This is pretty dope, right?
It
what
is,
we're saying.
actually.
And so I think that we need to live life, and if we're living life, we should be animated. And that's fully present, fully feeling, and fully alive. And that's what you'll see in me, like, because you know I go through family crisis stuff.
Sure.
I have stuff in my family that's like a moving thing. When you come from pain will keep knocking on your door your whole life, and you got to learn how to handle it. But you'll see that I stay in a state of animation because I stay in a state of being connected to the source, which is God.
I love that. And you mentioned like being present, right? I think it's so important because, as you mentioned, a lot of people, like even at the airport, they're just in motion. They don't even know they're running this program. And then you talked about feeling. And so the way people experience feelings is through experiences. And so that is the chain of the effect that has to happen in order for one to feel a certain way.
Yes.
And that's what I believe life is all about. I believe the quality of one's life is based on how they feel. And if you're feeling excited and animated and creative on a daily basis, you're truly maximizing what I believe God intended for us to have.
Yeah. I love that idea. And yeah, when you get into that place of walking in what I call your God idea, not your good idea, there's a certain fulfillment that applause cannot give you, fame cannot give you, because as you know, I work with a lot of entertainers, and I see behind the scenes, some of them are fulfilled and happy, but so many of them are not, and they get the applause at the highest level.
Yeah. Well, I think that even causes problems because that dopamine hit, their brain is looking for that hit.
Yes.
They're looking to match that feeling. And if you don't have substance, if your source of happiness is strictly contingent on what is happening at those events or money, when you get home and the lights are off and the sounds dim and the smoke clears, you're stuck with self. And if you can't stand self, then are you really even living?
Yeah.
You know, you're really even enjoying what life has in store for you.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that's interesting is because we're around so many of the thought leaders and the things that they talk about, I think there's too much discussion about getting, scaling, scaling. So when you have children, if you decide to have children someday, I promise you, you do not have a child with your wife and say, "Oh, that little guy, I just want him to scale and scale and scale." You're like excited that he's crawling or she's crawling, or that they stood. Oh my God, they're standing, right?
Yeah.
If you have a little girl, if she doesn't like ballet, at least she likes soccer. I think God's a lot like that.
Yeah.
I don't really think God put us down here just to like be workaholics and scale.
Right. That's so true. And you use the reference good ideas and God ideas.
Yeah.
And it brings me to this concept that I've learned, which is like push motivation, which a lot of these coaches and a lot of these speakers are out there, to your point, like scale, 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 push, 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 discipline, discipline, discipline. That's exhausting.
Yeah.
That gets tiring.
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing called pull motivation that I've learned, and I believe it references the part of your concept of the God idea.
Yeah.
When you serve something greater than yourself, there's no effort.
Yes.
Think about it. Like, what are you willing to do for those that you love?
Yeah.
Anything.
Anything.
So that's not a push. You're not needing to be disciplined to do that. You get it done. You find a way. When the food needs to get on the table, you figure it out.
I like that a lot.
And that practice has really helped me expand and grow to the level of success that I have, because I know every single day. You asked me earlier, why are you doing this, Ryan? Why do you sacrifice? Because the payoff is 100 times greater than my sacrifice.
Yeah.
Because I literally get to see people turn into something that they never thought was possible. And I get to experience that. And I believe God gives me those moments to remind myself what I've been through.
Yeah. And I think what's happened in your life, that when the light started to come on in you with a born again experience, is that the calling started to call you. And so at first, it's almost like when we used to use more landlines and that, and sometimes, I don't know if you go so far back that you can remember that you can get on a party line on accident. Like you'd be talking on your home phone and you could hear somebody else. Have you ever experienced that even once?
I've never experienced that.
Okay, this goes back to like the 70s.
Yeah, I'm a little after that, but
yeah, so you could be on the line and you'd hear some lady like she's talking about her family. I'm like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
So when somebody is starting to become awake on the inside and they get born again, they have to be careful, because there's still kind of a party line going on in the inside of their mind and their spirit.
Sure.
And so I think part of that party line is that you started to listen to the conversation of money is that thing that's going to be your thing. Okay? Go after the money, right?
Right.
And that was not a bad thing. It was just you went down the wrong party line.
Sure.
So I think now that you're really getting more tapped into the source, and I call it alignment to your assignment, you're hearing the calling call you, and the calling is to rise up and touch millions of people.
Wow.
Yeah, so like I never knew that God would give me platforms where I would be able to help millions and millions of people. I just was connected to the right part of the party line, and I was willing to be obedient to my calling.
And that was actually what you said when I started to gain some power when I spoke for the first time with you. It was like when you're in alignment with your assignment. And I was like, whoa, that's it. That was that pull motivation, because it immediately took away the fear and the insecurities and like, I got to perform, I got to do a good job. It took all that away and said, hey, dude, you've already done it. You just got to get up there and pour your heart out. Yeah. And that was huge. And I just remember you saying that, and I was just like, whoa, dude. So I think to sum up what we're saying is, if you really, really want to crush it in life, and whether that's financially, from a relationship perspective, speaking on stages, impacting other people's lives, you have to serve something greater than yourself.
Love it.
And when you can start to make those types of decisions, the world is going to pay you tenfold.
Yeah. I think even in relationships.
For sure.
I think in relationships to people that have children, you'll see your children in a different way. If you're a woman watching today and you're married, you'll see your spouse in a different way. So when we become people that think plural rather than singular, your life will get a lot better.
So true.
because I think that the world system is trying to get you to constantly think singular.
Sure.
What about you? What about you? What about you? But Jesus was all about plural.
Yeah. So true.
Mm-hmm.
It's so real. It's so interesting you saying this because like I understand like 95% of what we do is unconscious, and when you're unconscious, you're in the survival mind, which would be the singular. And as soon as you become conscious and aware and become present, you're realizing there's a higher purpose, and then it becomes plural. And that's when you take that transition from like a victim mindset or a survival mindset into more of a controlling mindset of like, hey, I'm powerful. I can actually be in control of my life. And so I think that's so powerful what you're saying.
See, but that's what's good about your gift. You just took what I said and took it 3 times deeper. So that was good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So for everybody that's watching, I think the key is that we all have assignments. And the thing about an assignment that God gives you, it may be your assignment for 2025, but the assignment may change for 2027. How much do you feel like your assignments are changing or evolving?
Dude, it's crazy. Just when I think like I'm right where I'm supposed to be, there's a whole new discovery. There's a whole new forging process. And I'm just like, oh my God, okay, God, like what do you got in store for me now? What's the next task, or what's the next challenge? And something I've learned along the way is that the first problem that everybody has is they think that there shouldn't be problems. And so once I started to like understand that, like, hey, life is all about problems and how to solve those problems. And as soon as you solve a problem, another problem presents itself. And so I think, to your point, and what I love so much about your teachings and having you in my life is like being aligned with my assignment. Like really just knowing God has me here for a reason, and he's using me, and I'm just a catalyst. I'm just a catalyst of change.
So let's see what you would do with this one. So I teach that we all go through recovery and discovery at the same time.
Correct.
So recovery of our past and recovery of our present. But if we get so caught up in the recovery zone, we'll miss the discovery zone. So like you could be so caught up in what you're not and just looking at your deficits that you miss the fact that that's the person you're supposed to date and maybe someday marry and have children with. People miss it because they're so much in the recovery zone. What would you do with that idea?
So it's interesting, and I actually just brought it forward just recently when I spoke, is your past perceived voids create your future perceived values. And see, as I said, 95% of what we do is unconscious. So you're living in the record of the past, a memory of the past. And so as you spend so much time thinking about your deficits or what you don't have, you're missing out on what's available, what God has in front of you. And that's what's interesting about this, because it's like we're talking here and you're listening to Tim and I. You weren't thinking about the table, but now that I said the table, you're focusing on the table. And so that just quick example lets you know that.
I like that.
Let's say the table is God's gift for you, but you're so focused on what you don't have or what's missing or the challenges you've been through, and there's the gift right here in front of you. And you just have to be available for it. So
good. So this recovery to discovery zone, do you feel like you're more in the recovery zone from your past, or do you feel like you're more in the discovery zone now? And then I'll answer where I think I am.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. Like, I've learned from some of the most brilliant minds in the world, Tony Robbins being one, and then David Traub. David Traub came from Adlerian psychology. Bill Riedler, influential, incredibly talented.
Brilliant guys.
Incredible. 2 different philosophies. So David Traub believes until you address that void from your childhood, you're never going to be able to experience God's gifts today. And so I think that would be the distinction of like recovery and discovery. Tony says, let's not worry about your past and let's just focus on your future, who you're becoming, your discovery. And so I believe personally it's a balancing act. I think, and they say it in recovery, right? Like, don't shut the door on the past. You will never shut the door on the past, or no, you will never regret the past nor shut the door on it. So I feel like there's a level of relationship that needs to happen with your past, like loving it and having compassion for it and saying thank you for it. And then it's like, okay, I'm at peace. And I believe once you have that moment, then you're in this discovery phase where you're in pursuit of what life has in store for you.
Yeah, well said. And I didn't know that about Tony Robbins. So you're saying he doesn't deal too much with the past?
So he is a huge component on like who you're becoming.
Yeah.
Your future self. We're all evolving. Every single day of our lives, we wake up, we're evolving. Our cells are evolving. Everything is evolving. And Tony says, if you're not growing, you're dying. And so anytime I've been in seminars, I've probably done 35 seminars with Tony at this point.
Yeah.
So several thousand hours of watching him real time take people through processes. But what tends to happen, Tim, is like if you weren't a speaker and you're like, all right, I want to become a speaker. I say, okay, great. Get up on stage to become a speaker. You're pursuing your future self, but then what happens? Your past shows up.
Yes.
Your voids show up. And so then there's an opportunity to address it in that moment, but he doesn't target to say, hey, let's go back to your past. Let's go back and see what's going on there, which would be the difference from my teacher and Tony.
Yeah.
But I think both are extremely valuable.
So I feel like I'm more in the discovery zone than the recovery zone. But I think in my 20s and 30s, I was big time in the recovery zone. From my father dying when I was a kid, my sister Viola dying 2 years later in a car accident that her friend was driving, and it was foggy, and she thought there was an off-ramp off the freeway, and my sister died. That was a lot of like tragedy at 10 and 12. And what I did is I stuffed it. Like I didn't even cry at my own dad's funeral or my own sister's funeral for whatever reason.
Wow.
I stuffed it. And so I feel like I was known as the happy guy, the happy athletic kid, but I was stuffing things. So those stuffed things would come up at times.
Sure.
Whether in a relationship with a woman or when I would get really stressed out. I was shocked at myself because for being so happy-go-lucky in my 20s and 30s, there was a few times that I would like erupt with a temper that I didn't even know I had one.
Sure.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
So I think 20s and 30s was a lot of healing, therapy, counseling, deeper with God. I'm still in recovery zone to a degree, but I think that this discovery zone is such an amazing thing because I think that the discovery to me is not always bigger. It's just other opportunities, whether it's me helping with prison reform or helping more people in addiction. So when I say that, what goes to your mind of me stuffing it at first and then 20s and 30s really having to go at it in the recovery zone?
Yeah, and so your autonomic nervous system stores all of those experiences.
Yeah.
Right? We call them like trauma capsules, where they're in your body. And based on what you perceive, based on the life experience you have, so you're moving through life, something comes up, somebody says something triggers you, you immediately go back to that memory, and then you start to have that triggering experience that you had when that trauma took place.
Yes.
And so I think it's very common to stuff it. It's a protection. It's designed. Your mind, your unconscious mind, is designed to protect you. It's designed to keep you safe. And so that is a method of safety, which is why people use drugs, which is why people gamble. They do all these things because it's truly a protection. And so you were doing your best to survive a traumatic experience, and you knew you had a calling and a higher purpose. And so I have a hallucination that you were like, hey, I got to be strong for my family. I got to be strong for my mom.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't time to deal with it at that time.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody is kind of on their own healing journey. And I believe the universe, God, gives us these moments when we're intended to heal.
I like what you're saying. And I've told many friends that don't want to go to rehab, that should go to rehab. I go, man, I wish I could have gone to rehab when I was in my 20s and 30s. And it wasn't for alcohol addiction, sex addiction, drug addiction. It was just for the damn pain I was in.
Yeah.
There's a friend that will watch this, Brent Bolthouse. He's a guy that is known as a gatekeeper of Hollywood. He ran Hyde, the nightclub, and he has all the bungalow restaurants. He's one of my best friends. He's the guy that introduced me to Robert Downey and everybody else. But Brent was always trying to get me to go to a couple facilities that had to do with more just exhaustion and mental health and childhood trauma.
Sure.
And I was so damn busy that I never made the time for it. But I tell you, in hindsight, I wish I would have made the time for it because I think I probably lost at least 5 years by not taking the time to go get off the road and take care of myself. Yeah,
it's so real. I definitely spend time every year disconnecting and allowing myself to sit and feel the feelings that are coming up, because then you're going to be able to identify all the things that you're not addressing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, like, we're so just automatically responding to life that we don't even really know what's going on under the hood.
Yeah.
And that's when disease happens, and that's when people start to respond and react in ways that they're not happy with, and they're like, oh my God, why did I just do that?
Yeah.
Because they're so disconnected from self.
I think part of the challenge is Stephen Covey has a statement that he says, somebody else's urgent is not necessarily yours. So really,
that's good. Let's
unpack that for a second. Because when you do what we do, somebody is always looking for us urgently.
Right.
Okay. So, I've been busy in Florida all week doing things. So a guy just tried to guilt me just a few minutes ago because I was in the back of an Uber, and he's like, hey, I've hit you up 3 times. I said, yeah, but I did text you back saying that this week I'm in Florida doing things.
Sure.
Let's talk on Zoom Monday. He's like, well, I don't really want to wait that long. So that's his urgent. And what I used to do is have a lot of guilt because I didn't get back to people quicker or I didn't jump when they wanted me to jump. But that was really not living.
Right.
I was not living, and I can't be in the moment.
Right.
If I got to return everybody's calls because I know too many people.
Right. It's tough.
So when I think about this and talk about this, what goes through your mind about this Covey quote?
Yeah, it's so powerful, dude, because, what I found is, like, we all have different parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. As we evolve and grow up, we have different seasons, and I would say those seasons or chapters would be different parts. And so there was a part of you that was the entertainer, right?
Yes.
That wants to keep everybody happy.
True.
You went through some challenging times as a child with your home environment. So you're like, I got to entertain. I got to keep the peace around here.
Perfect.
And so that part's in you. And so when somebody comes at you, that part of you comes out and it's like, oh shit, I need to please. I want to entertain. I want to make them happy.
Yeah.
And what you discovered is like, wait, if I just continue to let that part come forward, then am I really living? Like, what, how do I put these boundaries in place, and how do I put myself first and heal? Because I'm like you, bro. Like, I want to be everything to everybody. And it's interesting. I met with David Grutman maybe like a year ago, and that was actually one of the big takeaways I had with him, because he's one of the biggest promoters in the world, and he entertains and he's serving people, and he was like, one of the most valuable lessons that he learned is that he can't be everybody for everyone.
That's
everything
really
for everyone.
good.
Yeah.
Where did you get the thoughts about the entertainer coming out? That's super powerful, actually.
For sure. I mean, just knowing you and just feeling that part of you wanting. Yeah. Because think about, like, what would the entertainer's job be? To make everybody happy, to influence, to keep the peace, to keep everybody engaged. And so there's safety in that, right? Because if you're entertaining, think about it. Like, we go on stage.
Yes.
And I know this because it's me.
Yeah.
I go on stage, I captivate the room, I have everybody's attention. There's a form of control there. There's a form of safety there. And so that's in a bigger scale.
Yes.
But when you do that with like a friendship or like a group of people, there's safety in that. And your unconscious mind is doing that, is pulling that forward. And so what it sounds like is you're realizing, like, hey, I want to put myself first. But what's interesting, though, is like when somebody has that level of approach, like, who would want to be around that person anyways?
Yeah.
Like, there's a level of entitlement there. There's a level of greed there. It's almost like, and that's why for me,
Yeah.
I try to find that balance. Even when I communicate with you and all these high level people, I don't want to be a burden.
Yeah.
You know, like I just want to be able to add value when I can add value. And so that's
I like what you're saying. There's a lot of power in quiet. There's even a book called Quiet that I've read, and because I am a quiet person at times, but I think most creatives are, or they need to be, because I think it's in the quiet places that God really speaks.
Sure.
You know, on and on through the Bible, you'll see that God led people to a quiet place. He took them like to the desert so he could deal with them in the desert. And we both have had God do that in our lives, right?
Sure.
Deal with us in the desert. But you're so right. Like sometimes I'll go to dinner with people and they'll say, we're going to bring this guy and this person and this person, this person. And it's like, you know, it was going to be 3 and now it's 7 people. And then a guy will like, almost like if I'm a dolphin and they're like feed me fish, like tell him the story of, tell him when you were with, and the name of celebrities. But I don't want to be at Marine Land right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I don't want to perform. I just want to like talk about life or eat sushi or whatever restaurant that we're at. And in my younger stage, I used to do the performance. I would just perform almost every time.
Sure.
Oh yeah, let me tell you that story because I can kick into it.
Sure.
Nowadays, I'll say, no. Let me hear about you. Like Rachel, tell me who you are. I've never met you before. Dave, tell me who you are. Yeah. So I've learned to not just.
Yeah,
do what
I
people want
I
me
can
to do.
see that with you, and I feel that, and it's interesting because there's like this deep level of caring that you have, and you
Yes.
genuinely like love people.
Truly, yeah.
What do you think at this season in life?
Yeah.
Like, what really matters to you most? Like, before you answer, think about it. Check inside and be like, what does the rest of your life look like? What is it that you really want?
Yeah. So great question, and something that I think about a lot. I think about living. I'm into living right now because I think that in my teens and 20s and 30s, I came up too fast and I had too many grown-up experiences too quickly. And from the loss of people dying and seeing addiction in my family, not on my part, but from family members, I grew up too quick, and then I became well known in what I do too fast, I think too fast. And so you had a lot of people's expectations. Now I like slowing down to the speed of life. So I enjoy being in the moment. I enjoy small things like having conversations with random people. I was recently at a 7-Eleven like 2 months ago, and there was a homeless guy out there, and I said, "Can you give me a few minutes?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm going to be sitting here for hours," because he was actually kind of quick.
Time.
So I sat on the step with him, and I talked to him, Ryan, for like 45 minutes.
Wow.
And it wasn't like the typical Tim Storey just to like minister to him and heal him and help him. I just want to just figure out where he's at and why he's there.
Wow.
And it was weird. I got in my car and I felt good. I felt like, man, I just talked to a fellow human being and there was no agenda. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm into living life. There's a lot of nice projects that I get to do that people would consider great and cool projects. And those I will handle, but I'm more about living.
I love that. And, it's interesting when what you're saying is like, so doing the work that I've done and learning and doing the seminars and teaching people and healing, there's this thing called attunement that our parents, our caretakers, were responsible to introduce to us as we were getting older.
Okay.
And attunement is like the nonverbal, right? There's the unspoken language, and it's like just a deep interest. So like if baby Tim fell down and scratched his knee, attunement healthy attunement would be me going over there. Oh, what happened, Tim?
Yeah.
Is your knee okay? And just loving you, being present, just experiencing you, allowing you to be you.
Yeah.
As a species, we're the only species that need this for 15, I mean, up to 18 years. I mean, think about it. 18 years old, they essentially say, hey, go out on your own.
Yeah.
And then you have to like reparent yourself from 18 plus because you leave the nest.
This is excellent.
There's no more
Yeah.
parents. So what was interesting about that is like you were experiencing your own attunement. You were slowing down and just like genuinely having interest in somebody with no strings attached.
Yeah.
That's unconditional love. And see, so many parents don't understand this, and that's why a lot of us are on this conveyor belt, because they don't understand healthy attunement. They don't understand like just a deep interest. And so my teacher, David Traub, this all came from, like 50% of one's success on stage is truly caring and having a deep interest in the
Yes.
people you're talking to.
No doubt about it.
And so that, because it speaks to the unconscious. So like if I lean in and I just genuinely care about you, you're going to feel that. Regardless of what I'm saying,
Yeah.
the feeling is going to be there.
I like this. Attunement.
Yeah.
So that comes from who? Do we know?
No, I really have no idea. Actually, I just picked it up along the way, and it just made sense to me.
Yeah.
I know there's like internal family systems, and I know it's like healthy attachment needs, healthy attunement needs. I don't know who published it or who brought it forward, but it's a basic human need.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges of being in this state and stage of life is like whatever people perceive me as is not necessarily what I am throwing out there. And what I mean by that is it's weird to, when you're the younger guy speaking, they used to introduce me as this young man, when he gets up here, this young man, because remember, I've been speaking since I was 20.
I love it.
So the last like few years, I keep getting these lifetime achievement awards. It's the craziest thing because in my mind, I'm like still 35.
Yeah.
Like in my mind.
Sure.
My body doesn't always feel that way. Some days it does. Some days I feel like somebody beat me up when I was asleep. But my point is that this idea of growing and growth from this young man, so that's all about expectations. Like, let's see what he could pull off, okay? Now, being this guy, me, that has a lot of capabilities to make other people's lives better, there's a lot of reaching for me to do things like do this, please do this. That's a weird change for me.
Wow.
Because before it was like me ascending,
Sure.
and then now I'm like at some place where I sometimes feel like people see an ATM.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how does that make you feel when you feel like, I mean, I don't want to say being used, but I mean, the concept of an ATM is like go there and get what you need and leave.
Yeah.
And so if that's the example you're giving, so if you're the ATM and I come and I get what I come for and I bounce, do you find yourself like empty at times?
But this is a good conversation because I've never had this conversation on a podcast, so or TV show or Good Morning America or NBC Today show or Oprah or anybody. But I think that I don't overthink it, but I think I must feel that way because it does make me feel empty. But I don't overthink it and I don't get mad at people.
Right.
So I don't think like, bless that lady's heart, she was just trying to use me, or that guy. I don't really overthink it, but I do feel an emptiness, and I feel like they kind of missed the point of who I am, and I probably could have brought other value to them rather than just introducing them to Oprah Winfrey.
Wow. And, and that's been my experience with you, Tim, is like that deep connection. I mean, I lost my father and, you are a father.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was our like starting point. Like our relationship was like, hey, I see this guy as a son. I love what he's up to. And,
definitely.
And so it's really cool because I feel like it fills that void, because we've attempted many business dealings and for whatever reason, it just never found a place of success. Not saying that that won't be the case in the future.
Yeah.
But there was always this like deep love that I had for you, and just like this non-judgmental relationship that I've had with you. So I've experienced that unconditional love with you. Where do you think you learned that unconditional love? Because what you were saying about the ATM is you having that unconditional love for yourself, because you can't give what you have unless you can't give away what you have. You can't give what you don't have. And so when somebody is essentially using you as an ATM and you can just love them, that means you have unconditional love for yourself. Who taught you that?
So I would say that is going to be through biblical reframing of my mindset and my emotions, of God really renewing me and restoring me to be this person. So Psalms 103, this is interesting. He says, "For God does not treat you as your sins deserve." So to treat somebody is like, let's say somebody comes at Ryan a certain way, and so it's like, man, you treated me this way, I treat you that way, okay? That's almost like if you grow up in a certain neighborhood, kids do that to each other. So God does not treat you as your sins deserve. And then it says, "For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his love for those that honor him." And then it goes on to say, same chapter, "For he knows your frame." That is actually one of the most powerful scriptures in the Bible, that he knows your frame. Because the frame is the structure or the makeup. So when somebody is a user and they try to use you or use me or use anybody that's watching, I try to look at them in an empathetic way and go, wow, why are they like that?
Wow.
What, I mean,
So good.
do they need a green card? I like the real talk.
I love it.
Do they need a green card? Do they, you know, do they need this for that reason?
Yeah.
Do they feel like they're aging
Wow.
and now they need to make it super badly? Because they come with some heavy desperation sometimes. So I have to go there and say, hey, God knows our frame and he knows our makeup, our structure, and he does not judge us. So I want to try to understand their frame.
Sure.
Why is that guy trying to manipulate the hell out of me?
Wow. That's
Or
so
why
good.
is she trying to date me?
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting, Tim? So like,
You're bringing out some good honesty out of me today.
Listen. I love this because you just said something, and based on the frame you just talked about. So the formative years of one's life, you know, between the age of 1 and 8, you are developing your mind.
Yeah.
You're developing your perception of life. Well, what happens before the thoughts are sensations. And I believe sensations are building your character, who you're being in the world versus what you're doing in the world.
Good.
Because as you're mentioning, you're like, hey, this person is doing something, but I believe they have an underlying desire or a motive.
Yes.
And so their motives aren't aligned with their behaviors, their actions. And so that's a lot of what I speak to, is like the unconscious, which is who you're being in the world. What is your character? And it sounds like your path to developing unconditional love with God has really shaped your character, because anytime I'm out there and anybody ever talks about you, Tim Storey, they reference a loving, caring, unconditionally amazing man.
No, thank you.
And that's been my experience. And so it's so interesting because you're talking about the frame that you're being.
Yes.
And I think that's so important, because so many people try to like pursue success. They think if they do the thing, they're going to get to where they want to be. But if they be the guy that already has the thing, you're going to get the thing. Because you're being the guy that has the character that's acting as if you already have it. Yeah. And so that's something so interesting I've learned along my way.
I like what you're saying. I want to bring up one other idea. I remember I was talking to a minister one time, and I think he was a jealous minister. So you could have jealous people that own a deli, jealous people who are in crypto, and you could have jealous ministers. Right. And this guy, he had a big church, but he was still like kind of hating on me because I was getting a lot of attention. And I'll never forget, he was talking about me, and he said, you know, since you've started the Hollywood Bible study and that. A lot of people think that you've become too secular. And he says, it's tarnished your image. And he said, you know, Tim, you just have to realize in a lot of people's mind, you've been tarnished. And
how did that feel when you heard them say that?
What I instantly thought is I disagree, because I disagreed based on what I knew from the Bible. Because what he was trying to do is shame me. He was trying to label me because of his own little trippy
his own beliefs,
problems.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is powerful, because he was trying to put a label on me like, you've been tarnished because we don't see you as a typical minister who wants to be on Christian TV and play that little role, right? That was never me. I was doing my assignment, what God called me to do.
Wow.
And hang out with Charlie Sheen because I wanted to try to help the guy. And this guy was saying, you're tarnished because people are knowing that you're hanging out with these people trying to help them. He's completely wrong. Because in God, you might have become tarnished, but God does not see you as tarnished.
Wow.
Because God the Father sees you through the redemption of his son, Jesus Christ.
That's so good.
So that's why the Bible says, lift up holy hands without wrath or doubting. And so God sees us as forgiven, just as if we've never sinned.
Wow.
And man, when you get that revelation, and don't try to make up for your tarnished life, whether you were out there too much as a woman, doing things you shouldn't have done, or as a man, whatever you've been doing.
Sure.
Your past is your past, and God has forgiven you if you've asked for forgiveness.
Wow, there's so much gems in what you just said.
Yeah.
First, people aren't going to agree with your vision. People aren't going to see what God has in store for you. And what I've experienced many times is they're going to put their own limitations on you. And that was so powerful of you to see through that and to continue, because what tends to happen is the ones that hurt us the most are usually the ones closest to us.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you confided in this guy and you looked up to this guy, and and he was jealous of you. And thank God you kept going. Thank God you pushed through that. And so if you're listening to this message today, it's intended for you to realize that God has so much more in store for you. Your dreams are right around the corner. Your true purpose in life is right around the corner.
Good stuff.
You just can't listen to the noise of what everybody else is saying. And Tim, you've been incredible, man. Like, I love you so much, dude. You're a huge inspiration. When I think about having you in my corner, it's like me getting ready to step into the ring or the octagon, and I got my guy there.
Yeah,
and,
truly.
And you've given me that strength, Tim. And I'm not just saying this. I'm being sincere when I say this to you. God has definitely has his hand on you, and you've given that hand to me, and I'm so grateful for that, and I'm so thankful for that. And if you guys don't know him, follow him, Tim Storey. He's incredible. I'll add his link to his name down in the bio. How can people find you? Is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think the easiest just is timstorey.com. You'll put it there, like Tim Storey, STOREY.com. But what I want to say is, it's exciting for me to watch you step up to the stages that you're stepping up to. It's your time to shine. Tony Robbins and I, we've been around a long time. Both of us have been doing it about 40 years.
Yeah.
So it's time for you, and that's exciting. And I expect you to go higher than us, because that's a biblical principle. There was an Elijah, he mentored Elisha, and Elisha went higher than Elijah. So I'm excited about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, brother. If you're not following, go ahead and subscribe. If you're new here, thank you for being here. You're going to continue to get high-level people that are truly making a difference in the world. Tim, I love you, brother. Thank you so much.
Love you too.
Yeah, bro. God bless. What are you thinking, Tim?
Man, that's powerful. That's powerful. Did you see the deep places we went?
Of course.
What the
I
heck?
loved it.
That was God flowing.